Welcome to the Community Services Committee meeting for the 3rd of November. As we haven't got the presence of a chair or deputy chair, we need a nomination to be chair. I don't know if anyone's happy to.
I'm happy to nominate you, Deputy Mayor, if that's okay.
Me.
And I'm happy to second.
Unanimous.
Yes, that was.
You're already sat there, so.
Congratulations. That's the music.
Okay, right. We'll start off then with apologies for absence.
Have apologies from the Mayor, Councillor Commando, Councillor Blennerhassett, Councillor O'Riordan,
Councillor Neil.
and Councillor Neil.
Right. Okay. And also declarations of interest on anything for the agenda tonight. No? Okay. Well, as always, if we get to anything and someone does find an interest, then they need to declare. Please do so at the time. Next agenda point is public question time. Do we have any questions?
Nobody wishes to speak, no.
Okay. Okay, so to agree the minutes of the next of the meeting on September the 8th as an accurate record, do you have approval to sign that on?
Yes.
Yeah. Just do that. Okay, so the next point on the agenda is to review the action tracker, agreed actions upon it.
You can just comment that the action we agreed at the last meeting that officers would investigate extending the Christmas lights. As yet, we haven't had time to do that, but we will report back as soon as we have.
Okay. Is there anything else in the action tracker?
That's the only item.
It's the only item. Okay. There's nothing else going on to comment on the previous one or any updates given, I'll take it. Okay, that's good. Right, we should then proceed then with the next agenda item, which is the town centre services. Who's going to be taking us through that report? Annette.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
There isn't really too much updates from my original report, but just increase in numbers from Twilight, really, from what the report says. So on Thursday, the 11th of December, we're now up to 34 bookings. The 12th of December, that's up to 40. And the 13th of December, pretty much now to its capacity, we're at 52. People have to the 5th of December, those that have pre-booked to pay, and then obviously I'll reassess what spaces we've got, and then maybe put some more posts out inviting people to take stalls. But it's all positive. I get lots of emails every day, people asking about Twilight, so I have no worries that we will not be full on the Saturday or the Friday, and that it will be as busy as it normally is. I have emailed Loo of the Year to see if there was any update, because I was hoping to be able to tell you if we had got an award, but it was very quiet. They haven't responded to me, so we'll just have to wait until they do send that email, and then obviously on councillor updates I will let you know what we get. The only other thing that I was going to mention was that businesses have now started to email to say that they are interested in taking part in the Christmas window competition. It is one that they enjoy doing. They do get quite competitive, so them emails have started to come through, and then over the next week I shall walk the high street and hand out letters to remind them to actually sign up to do it. Because sometimes they do think I walk round, but they have to actually sign up to do it. The one on Facebook, any shop, even if they haven't actually entered the competition, is up for judging, so that'll be a slightly different vote. Vacancy rates actually really looking good. We've dropped down again. We're 11.46. And the next one will be January 2026. So, but at the moment that's looking positive. It's coming down very slowly each quarter, so it's looking good. And as we all know, boys have opened. So hopefully the footfall in that area of town will start looking a lot more positive, and that will encourage other businesses to open down there. That was really all the updates. The tender, as I say, is due to be looked at in November, which is we are in the next few weeks. So we will know by the next committee meeting how many people have put in for that tender. But that's it for my updates, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. Okay, does anyone members have any questions or anything to raise on that? No. Good. I'd just like to say that you know, went into Boys on Saturday and was really surprised the amount of people that was in there. I think the whole part of that town was absolutely buzzing. So hopefully that's a good sign for things to come, and footfall's really increased in that area. But I think the general sense of opinion is everyone's happy that we've got a major stall that's back in action again, and it's certainly going to make a big difference. Just about people crossing the diagonal crossing in the road, you could see the crowds and the footfall was completely different. So that's a very positive thing. That's all.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was curious on 3.5. Unfortunately, the pre-application planning advice has been very negative, and at this stage, unless senior member and officer support is secured for the project, this cannot proceed. Could this be elaborated on, please?
Is this the Pulse?
Yes.
Yes, I'm Becky Islam, so hopefully she'll be able. So myself and Becky have both been working on this, and I'm glad Becky just put her hand up there.
No worries. Yes, thank you for the query. So the pre-plan application advice has been, which is meant to be helpful and provide the support for the applicant to then proceed and understand what adaptations might be required, hasn't really given us any suggestions about how we could proceed with this, largely because when I've looked through it in detail, it seems to be about the fact that we're in a conservation area and that these communication boxes, as they're referred to, and advertising columns would not be suitable in that location. So all but one would be in the conservation area, and they just don't see that they are feasible or appropriate. They haven't advised how they could be made in such a way that would be appropriate, and so Pulse, who have experience of this within conservation areas up and down the country, have basically said unless we can get some more support within central Bedfordshire, it's too risky for them to even proceed to a full application process at this stage, because there just isn't anything to go on that they could adapt to the application where they feel that they would have more success in taking it forward. So they were quite surprised by the response that they got from central Bedfordshire planning team.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else that members want to raise or query? Okay, thanks very much, Nat and Becky. Right, we move on then to the budget proposals for 2026-2027 report.
I will introduce that. So, members, this is your first of two stabs at discussing the budget for community services for next year. This will go through all committees as it did last year. What we've provided you with is a table summarising the differences between the 4-year budget you agreed in February and what we're suggesting as needed budget for now. So where there's differences given in the table, the differences between what was put in February and what we think the change would have to be. Some of those, for example, Older People's Lunch Club and some of the Splash Park, actually there's a requirement for more expenditure, but that's offset by income on the other table. So it's not all quite how it looks until you've read it through properly. The overall council budget is looking fairly tricky, as I briefed members on the other night. The budget we set for, when we agreed a 4-year budget in February, you agreed a budget for 26-27, which would be an 8% increase. The initial draft comes out at about 12%. Obviously, you're going to want to talk to us about ways of bringing that down. At the moment, what we're doing is setting, actually, this would be business as normal. This is the budget for business as normal, based on known changes to expenses. So really, this is the opportunity for you to suggest any areas you'd like to explore further. I know Councillor Kortarski has raised some comments about events. via email with all councillors. We can't go into an event by event conversation this evening because we haven't had time to prepare that information, but we've certainly offered Councillor Katarski the opportunity to come in and meet and talk that through in some detail. So happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any immediate questions they want to ask on that? No.
Yeah, okay. So, hi there. Just wondering, the bar and catering services, is that that's a increase, a minus, isn't it, of 12 grand on the budget?
Where are we looking?
1032, and it's a memorial recreation. In red.
Yeah.
Page, oh, I don't know what page it is. 8.
Yeah, so we're forecasting that for next year it would cost us a bit more to run the overall service of around 7,000 in terms of we over forecast what the income was going to be for this year. We didn't take as much during the summer period as we thought we would based on the previous year. Why that is, it's hard to tell, to be honest. People may have been on holiday somewhere else. But also there are some costs necessary to run Bennett's. So for example, you can't have loan working there. So you have to have 2 members of staff all the time. And because we've tightened up on that, that's added a bit of cost on as well. So realistically, that is the cost.
Is this off the back of us deciding to open through the whole winter period as well?
Yeah, absolutely that affects. So the budget has gone up because of that.
Fantastic. So I'm so happy. Okay. Salaries can't do much about. On the blue section, so there's the red section, the growth items and the savings.
Yeah.
They've both got minuses on. It's a little bit confusing to read. So when there's a minus on the red table, is that a budget overspend? And when there's a minus on the other one, is that budget save it? Or are they both?
That is a very good question.
I don't know which way, how I'm meant to read that.
I don't think there should be minuses on the other table. The total set, the numbers for savings are savings, whether it's a minus or not.
Okay.
Because no other reading of it makes sense. So I'll have to check that. I'll get back to you and we might have to correct. I'll check the grounds report as well.
Okay, brilliant. Appreciate that.
Okay, I'd just like to say, obviously I understand that obviously the events can't be looked at tonight, like you said. We look at different events, but could we put a request for costs to be understood before we can really enter into that debate of exactly what each event costs us and how much we actually make from it? Because obviously if we need to make any decisions on that, we need to be careful. Not only to meet residents' expectations, but also to understand what we make from it, as things like the beer tent and things like that from Party in the Park and things like that, and other merchandising, to understand how much the true costs really are. So it'd be useful to have that information, the breakdown for each event, before we could even make that. So what she said, the information would be forthcoming later on. Can that be made sure that's available so we can make a proper debate on that?
Yeah, so the budget does include a budget line for each event, which gives you a fairly good idea. But of course there are some things, so for example security, toilets, where we do a contract across the year for everything, so it's not always easy to extrapolate it. And also concessions, so we have income from beer, we have income from the ice cream, which is split across events as well. So to some extent, sometimes it's easy to have a bit of a conversation about, well, I'm interested in that bit, right, let's open up that conversation. But we'll absolutely, I know Councillor Katarski wants to come and have that conversation. Obviously everybody else wants to join that conversation. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. I'm just saying it'd be good to have all of the costs and, certainly the income side of it as well that we get from these sort of things, so we can, if we don't want to sort of it to be cut off our nose to spike our face, so to speak. So we need to be careful about how there's the law of unforeseen consequences. Absolutely.
Did we ask last time for a kind of breakdown of what an event, if we cancelled an event, what that would save. So if we didn't do St George's, for example, not saying that we shouldn't, but how much could be saved on the budget? Reason, like, it would be useful to know, like, each event, what would, if it was completely stopped, and bearing in mind staffing costs to do it all and electricity hire, all of that, because then without going into too much detail, Central Beds is probably going to slap the maximum rate of council tax rise, and that's not going to cover a massive hole that I'm sure they're going to have. And I would not be very comfortable with the figure you mentioned earlier, staying as is. I think didn't you say 12%? Yeah, I mean, that's similar to what I argued against last time, which was 11 last time, I think, wasn't it? Last year.
I mean,
Yeah, and we got it down a little bit, which was quite good. But yeah, I mean, we might need to be looking at some serious kind of adjustments. And it would be good to know and to be able to debate with a decent amount of knowledge, like where could big savings be made if necessary.
Yeah.
Obviously, looking at the Bennett's Rec, the Priory House, all of this kind of stuff, the tea rooms, there's not a lot we can do with that. There's a lot of stuff that like we need to pay for. But with as much wool in the world, them events are good to have, not a need to have. So it would be good to know what saving could be made.
I think with all due respect that we did have quite an exercise last year regarding this same sort of thing, that we in a lot of working groups as well, where we managed to shave bits and pieces of. But whether that can be continued in that vein, I'm not so sure.
We can't
From year on year.
Can't just keep taxing people.
No, we can't.
Things
Yeah.
year on year, ridiculously high amounts. And I appreciate it's a small percent of somebody's overall council tax bill, but it's a rise after a rise after a rise when people themselves are cutting back, and it would be churlish for us not to do the same.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but it's about making things balance, isn't it, at the end of the day? So that's Councillor Kwiatkowski.
Yeah, I think one of the key things I was looking at is obviously we want events, because that's one of the things that brings the crowds down. And when you ask people about what Dunstable Town Council do, events are one of the key things. It's very, very focal. I obviously suggested a few different ways we could try and maybe decrease the costs on those. One of those being obviously alternating yearly between certain events, which people would have to decide on, councillors have to decide on. So that would then reduce the overall annual budget to a certain degree, but it would mean one less event or two less events each year. I did notice, I forget where it came in now on the actual agenda tonight, but our footfall on one of the picture nights clashed with Leighton Buzzard, and they had taken our footfall away to some extent. But maybe we could work with Leighton Buzzard to sort of share that event again. And they might benefit from that as well as us, in that we alternate who actually runs the event and publicise it for each other, so that the event takes place but in a different venue each year. But it's just something to look at.
Yeah,
That's prompted apart.
Do like the idea of
options there, isn't
Yeah,
there?
but
biannual event sounds like a good
but we take it in turns to run
potential
that
solution.
event on
Yeah.
a particular day. So
I think there's lots of things that need to debate there, and there's lots of good suggestions. But if we could get facts together to what costs what, and then we can make some informed decisions based on, on the facts and the information.
I'm just more than aware on the other committee, Grounds and Environment, there's at least a few members of that committee which are going to say exactly the same things about flowers and green flags and things and that, and we'll never find any savings if we don't look carefully.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks to Councillor Kwiatkowski that came up for his inventive ideas. I think that's quite inspirational. And I think even if there's not a decision made to, take any of these events away or to change them round to biannual or whatever, some of those could be incorporated anyway to cut costs, even if we do decide to keep the full schedule of events. I particularly like some of the things that involve councillors and sponge throwing and goodness knows what for the St George's Day for council. At the end of the day, it allows us to interact. You know, it does allow us to interact more with residents and in a fun sort of way. And if that can help to keep costs down as well, then it's a win-win situation, isn't it? That's all them.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Last year we had a sort of, I don't know if it was a full working group, but a couple of councillors who were interested in looking at savings for in the grounds area met together with officers and discussed a couple of ideas and bottomed out a few ideas, and that was a really useful forum to sort of find out actually, oh no, that spending does make a lot of sense and that sort of thing, and sort of interrogating all that detail, which isn't always possible to do in a council meeting setting. I mean, sometimes it is, but it might be useful to do something like that for the community sides, which I'd be interested in attending. Actually.
Is there any other comments on those particular items we discussed?
If I can come in, please, Chair.
Yes, certainly.
It sounds like there's some agreement. Sorry, apologies. It sounds like there's some agreement about having a working group set up. I think before that first meeting, it would be really really useful to understand what you as members are wanting information wise around the budget, because the budget book is very clear about events and the cost of those events, and the income cannot be drawn down to each event. It is purely not possible to do that because the way in which we get income from our concessions and from stalls, etc. So there can be a proportion might in some respects where we've had specific sponsorship for an event, but by and large it's really not that possible. And as Paul mentioned, we also have some of our costs. We get the value for money because we run X number of events, and so we're able to contract out quite a large piece of infrastructure costs there, which if we reduce one event wouldn't mean that we necessarily actually actualize that saving. So ahead of any meeting that we have with yourselves, it would be really useful for us as officers to have the detail about what it is specifically you're not getting currently from the budget book and from this what you've received this evening, so we can make sure that we're able to either come back and answer those questions or tell you that we cannot provide you with that information in the format that you are seeking, and tell you what we are able to do instead.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's first. Yeah.
So okay, I'll try to request what I want based on what you've just said. So from my perspective, we run most of these events, and we've run most of these events for a number of years, so we're aware of the kind of, we can estimate what income and what expenditure is spent and received on each event. I would assume, or if we can't do it, we could break it down by the number of events that we spend it to. We should be able to figure out how much an event costs us.
But
so
as I was trying to explain, Councillor, is the fact that we get some of the value for money by the number of events that we contract out for some of our infrastructure, or some of the income that we get from, say, a concession. If we reduce the number of events, we might get rid of an event that then brings in a lot of money, or that covers a big part of the contract, and so we don't actualise that saving, or it doesn't have that same impact. So it's just a word of caution about what you're asking for. It may not give you quite the actual that you were anticipating or would expect from it.
In which case we'd rely quite heavily on officers to look into how a saving can be made on an event, as the proposed overall cost.
The events can't be
increases.
run any cheaper. They are, so the only way, if you're talking about the whole of the events budget, but that would be in itself quite a bit of work, where we would need to go away and speak to our contractors and our concessions to understand what that would mean. But if that's what you're wanting, then that's that's exactly what I'm saying about this. If we can get that information, not necessarily tonight, but ahead of any time that we meet, and then we can see, myself, Gina and Lisa can look to see what we can actualise, so what you're asking for and then what is possible to achieve. Some of it might be able to provide you that information, others we might not be able to, but we can find you slightly different information. Would that meet your needs?
Partially, yeah. Yeah, partially. What would be, I mean, what would be the budgetary impact of running the say 50% of the events one year, 50% of them next year, but maintaining the contracts? Is that a possibility, for example?
Okay, so let's take that. So that's exactly what I'm asking for in advance of us having a meeting. Those kind of questions, if you can provide them to us, we will go away and look at them. You've got, you know, there's some questions here which we can then look in more detail at.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you, Becky. Councillor Bater.
I just wanted to say as well on with regard to the what Nick's done, Liz Jones has also put forward some good ideas as well, which I think we should take into account as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, I think what we really need to do is to make sure that, you know, we have a amount or something that goes to all the councillors to say, can we all have suggestions by a certain deadline date?
Yeah.
And then we can tie that into the next meeting and also post the questions that Becky's just asked us to, as councillors, what we need to see to help us with that decision. So on the day, we've got all our informed information to make a proper decision.
Yes, so we're talking about two things. Talk about an email that will go out to councillors tomorrow saying we'd like any specific areas for query that we can then do some work on.
Yeah.
We'll then have a meeting with Councillor Katarski and I think Alderman, anybody else who wants to come to work that through in detail, and then that meeting will help us inform what we put in the draft budget, and that might then lead to options. So here are 2 or 3 different options if members disagree on.
And maybe somebody from the Conservative Party as well. So you've got all 3.
We'll do an open, the email will say who wants to be part of it.
Liz has obviously contributed, so hopefully Liz will be able to make it, depending on their work commitments.
Okay, has anyone else got any other questions they want to raise before we move on? No. Okay, we'll move on to the next report then for Priory House.
Apologies, I'm not quick enough at getting my mouse to take me off of mute. Members, I'm taking the Priory House report this evening. I will just pick out any key salient points and then happy to take any questions afterwards. There is a decision in this report, and I'll just highlight that first before I go through the other updates. So the decision is in relation to a funding application that we have submitted to the National Archives to help fund youth engagement workshops as part of the exhibition work that's currently taking place. It would look at a co-design and co-delivery of an element of the exhibition, working with young people in Dunstable. It's only a very small amount of £5,000, and again, we are not overly hopeful just due to the fact that we know that it's already oversubscribed and it hasn't reached the submission date yet. However, if we are successful, we would just like an agreement from this evening that you would accept that funding should that be the case. We're also looking at other options of other funding available as well, and it wouldn't stop us from proceeding with the work. If we weren't successful, it would just enable us to spend some more dedicated time with the young people. If we weren't successful, then we just wouldn't be able to deliver those workshops with Creative Core. So that's all. It's not stopping us. It's just helping us to develop further and wider if we possibly can. Just then, updates in regards to the rest of Priory House. As you can see, we have now opened up the gift shop area and included a refurbished serving area, which means we are able to do some light bites. In regards to how well it's gone down, it's been very positively received by our regulars, and we're hoping to attract more new customers as well. And it will certainly, when we do open up the whole of Priory House, I think it will certainly help to create an opportunity where we can deliver a quick lunchtime service through the gift shop area, and then a more substantial sit-down service for for those wishing to take afternoon tea and a longer lunch break or coffee time. So it's definitely an asset to have to the shop, and the retail stock has also gone down very well, so that's very positive. The refurbishment themselves, as I've mentioned, we are still working hard with Creative Core on the exhibition area. With a number of workshops now having taken place with key partners. And the works themselves are continuing to go ahead. We have permissions in place for the internal works with the stills that have now gone in. We are still awaiting plan permission in regards to the flood mitigation works, which is slightly frustrating, but it isn't holding up the programme at present, so it's not causing us any problems at this point. I've been told that we've got until I think it's March next year. If we don't have it in place by then we are going to be hitting problems. There's no reason why we should be at all. Central Beds clearly have a bit of a backlog going on with their planning permissions. Just the other thing to point out there is that we will be having to take a slightly longer Christmas break due to having to change some fuse boxes in different parts of the building, which will affect power to the whole of the house. So it's been agreed that for minimum disruption and impact on income, that will mean that we'll do it the first week back after Christmas. So Priory House won't reopen until the 12th of January. Communications group is going well with the lottery and Historic England. It's really helped with us reopening and trying to answer some of those key questions that people have been asking us, and we'll continue to develop our website and our communications and marketing accordingly. Section 4 is the financials, which are down as you would expect, with the fact that we have limited offers and we have been closed for a number of months, but I am happy to take any questions both in regards to the recommendation and any other elements of the report. Thank you.
Councillor Crawley.
Thanks, Chair. The takings for the gift shop and the priority the tea room, how do they? Did we adjust a budget and how to allow for the impact? And if so, how are we doing against that? Do we know? Or did we are we just kind of monitoring it as
we
go
kept
along?
it exactly, we kept the budgets exactly the same, including the salaries, with the view that we knew that we'd be then making a saving there, which we could then put into the exhibition itself. So that's how we're funding the exhibition. So
Okay,
any savings that we've got, we're ring fencing them for those works.
Okay, and thank you. That's really helpful to know. And the grant funding from the National Archives, is that a project, the project for the young engagement workshops, is that an additional thing that we would be doing, or with the funding, or would you'd mentioned that something would be run anyway potentially?
So we wouldn't, yeah, basically the exhibition itself will still happen, but it won't have the youth co-design and co-creation element, because we won't be able to resource that to that extent. So we'll still have a new exhibition there. It's just that extra piece of engagement work that we really want to try and get young people starting to own and value Priory House just won't be to the extent that we had hoped we could do with this money. So it doesn't matter if we don't get it, but it would be disappointing because we couldn't necessarily stretch what we could do at this moment.
I think it's sensible to accept the money if we're awarded it, as long as we can kind of make use of it without stretching it, like having to pull more money into
Yeah, there wouldn't be.
bolster it up.
There'd be
Yeah,
no addition. There's match funding, but that's in terms of youth work time and use of a venue. There's no other match funding requirements at all. So
Brilliant. Sounds good then.
Okay, thanks for that, Becky. I must admit, I popped my head round the door into the shop on Saturday, and I was quite impressed with the way it's all been done. So it looks nice in there, and it's good to know it's just been open, ready for the Christmas period, and now lighting torch procession and things like that. So hopefully we'll see an impact on the figures at future committee meetings, and that will have a improvement. But I think it's better for the staff as well, not having to move around between that and the kitchen, and they've got the panini machine and things like that. There is great, so it's a lot better for their facilities as well in that aspect. Okay, is there any other queries or questions that people would like to raise on the report the package has taken us through? We have to have a vote on a particular recommendation. Okay, so we have a show of hands in for if we agree for that recommendation to be put forward. Report is the events programme, which I believe you're taking us through, Gina. Yeah, thank you.
Evening, Chair and members. Starting off with past events. Priory Proms and Park took place on Saturday, 13th of September. It was really well received by all those that attended. There was noted that there was a lower turnout compared to previous years. This year there was about 400 to 500 people who attended, and it was noted it was cold and there was rain on the day as well. Officers have noted that there is a decline in numbers as from previous years, which peaked at over 1,500 visitors. However, it was also seen that Leighton Buzzard have a Proms in the Park event as well, and that started in 2022, where we did notice our numbers declining. The Leighton Buzzard event also mirrors very closely to the Dunstables format, and visitors on the day who usually attended did report back that their friends and families who come to Dunstable have maybe opted for the Leighton Buzzard event as it's closer to where they live. Christmas carols and torchlight procession. The planning for the Christmas carols and torchlight procession is going well. To date, there's actually confirmed 12 schools with 361 children, including the Dunstables Ladies Choir and Priory Church Choir. The road closure has been submitted, and unfortunately, the Grove Theatre Panto stars usually attend every year. However, they won't be able to attend this year due to the clashing of schedules for rehearsals. BBB Group will be providing the light show finale. The event is sponsored by Penrose Estate Agents, who have also sponsored the Christmas tree on the square this year. And Darren from BBB will be comparing this year's event. Section 3, the table below outlines the event dates for 2026. There has been changes for the Dunstable Soapbox Derby and Priory Pitches. The Soapbox Derby date has been moved to the first week of September, and Priory Pitches will now be taking place on Saturday, the 15th of August. The Soapbox Derby has been moved to allow for more time for families and children to actually be able to build their cart, and also seeing that during the school holidays there may be significant holidays and commitments planned by families. So that would mean that more participants are able to actually take part in the Soapbox Derby. The revised date for Priory Pitches allows the remaining events programme to be evenly spaced out throughout the year without any gaps during the summer holidays. So it maintains a good spread throughout the year. Section 4, event surveys. Section 4 shows the surveys undertaken for this year's events with 468 responses received so far, with one event left to go, which is the torchlight procession. The surveys collected have been extremely positive and closely match last year's survey results, despite a slightly lower number of responses received so far. Noticeably, there's been 92 responses this year that have reported that they're very satisfied or satisfied with their visit, and 81% have said they're extremely likely or very likely to attend to recommend the Dunstable events to friends. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gina. Okay, open to questions to members. Councillor Alden.
Thank you. More an observation. I think it's a good idea to move the soapbox to the weekend right at the end of the summer holiday. You'll get a lot more people coming. I couldn't attend this year's one because I was on holiday. So yeah, from personal experience, yeah, I think that's a really good move. Great report. Thank you.
Anybody else got any comments? Just like to say thanks very much for your efforts, Gina. It's not always easy to keep the momentum going that you have achieved up to now, and it really is appreciated by everyone, the efforts that you put in. You know, having been at many events, I've seen, you know, you'd go above and beyond, so that is appreciated very much. Likewise, I agree with the comment that you know, pushing things back to September will be much better for the kart derby, and you know, I think that will probably have more entries in it then as well. So given the success we have with it this year and the amount of inquiries, I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to be a pretty good rate of turnout rate for this year. So hopefully it will all be good. But yeah, apart from the little tweaks, I think it's all great. Councillor Carson.
Just, I'll second that as well. Save me saying that again. On the percentages, is there any other questions which have been missed out? Because I've expected them to add up to 100%, but they don't all add up to 100%.
At the top of my head, I can't quite remember these questions, Councillor, but I do know that one of the options is actually to skip the question totally.
Okay, so they
That can sometimes
be
be
recorded, but not
slightly.
said anything basically. Okay, well, that's fair enough.
Okay, do we have any other comments from any other members? Okay, thanks very much, Gina. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is Grove Corner and community engagement.
Lovely, thank you. Members, I'd like to draw your attention just to a few key parts of the report. So under section 1, Grove Corner figures, 1.2, just to note that in the time period of the 14th of August to the 13th of September, we've had 22 new young people sign up over that period of time. And we anticipate now that autumn's arrived that will continue to increase. It's what we usually see at this time of the year. Section 2, youth engagement. Officers were approached by members of the Junior Youth Club who asked to organise, facilitate and host their own talent show. So the Youth Apprentice worked with these young people, and the young people on the evening hosted the whole talent show, and in the lead up to it they designed their own posters, they signed up their peers to take part in the talent show. It was really enjoyed by all who took part, and it was brilliant to see the young people have this initiative and then been able to do this kind of talent show. So we look forward to kind of doing something again in the future, and the 3 that arranged it were given certificates just to acknowledge their efforts of organising this. 2.4, officers continue to facilitate informal education around current and emerging issues that young people may be facing or kind of be aware of. Officers have facilitated conversations about navigating fallouts with friends and what healthy friendships look like, how to be emotionally resilient, and have been discussing themes as and when they arise. And when required, officers invite different organisations who have specialist areas to come and visit Grove Corner. So the themes are always very relevant for the young people based on kind of current trends or emerging things that we are witnessing. Section 3, detached youth work. 3.3, so officers continue to be flexible and fluid within their approach to the detached youth work. With the colder and darker nights approaching, officers have already adjusted the timings of their engagement on a Thursday evening and will continue to make the necessary amendments when required. Between the 14th of August and the 15th of October, officers have engaged with 415 young people by head count. Therefore, it's worth noting that the youth team have had 781 interactions with young people between the 14th of August and the 15th of October through both centre-based youth work and detached youth work. 83 of these young people have engaged with the youth provision offered by the Town Council for the first time in this duration. The detached team also over October half term took the young people on a trip to Fort Park. They went to the Pioneer Indoor Skate Park over in St Albans. They ran a swim and skate party, did a ghost walk and facilitated a party in Grove Corner. And we had 88 young people attend the attached half-term activities. And you may have seen on social media, particularly on Grove Corner, there's been some really positive feedbacks of many people thanking us for these opportunities for their young people. 3.8, officers have met with Central Bedfordshire Council to discuss the youth work funding commitment to the town. It has been verbally confirmed that CBC will continue their funding for another year, this being £30,000. This would therefore cover most of the costs associated with delivering 3 nights a week detached youth work, which is calculated at £35,000. As part of the budget setting process, it's recommended that the Town Council commits £35,000 for detached youth work to ensure continuity of the service should Central Bedfordshire Council have to at any point withdraw their funding. Any residue at the end of the year could then be placed into a ring-fenced youth service reserve. Section 4, school engagement. Officers worked in partnership with St Augustine's Academy and Wildlife Trust to facilitate a wellbeing walk. This was part of the Bedfordshire Wellbeing Festival. And the school were really complimentary about this and said they were really grateful for the opportunity and expressed it was very beneficial and helpful for their students. And we had over 60 children attend that walk, which was brilliant. Section 5, community engagement 5.4. Officers have worked with the Parks and Green Spaces officer to complete the Red Phone Box project on Church Street, and this project is now concluded and has been officially opened by the Mayor. Section 6, Bennett Stashtide's Cafe and Community Hub 6.3. Officers continue to advertise for the Friends of Bennett's Memorial Recreation Ground Group. And the group's role would include supporting day events, contributing to ideas for the cafe, assisting with litter picks and weeding, and offering support to the wider community groups. Although interest has been limited initially, officers have continued to advertise these and also having conversations about possibly, instead of having one big Friends of group, having some small subgroups. So, for example, the canine walks that we're doing, you may have a small Friends of its group that focus on that. And then the home education, you might again have a small, and then it would be that you collectively bring them together at certain times of the year. So we're also exploring that idea. 6.8, officers are currently developing a festive programme of events for December, including themed cafe days, craft activities, and looking at a community Christmas grotto. And that would aim to be inclusive and accessible for families, which otherwise might not go to a traditional Santa's grotto. So once plans have been finalised and confirmed, then they will be promoted on social media, the website and posters, etc. And 6.12, a full programme of family-friendly activities took place over half term. And there was a variety of sessions designed to engage children and their families over the school break. 6.13, the monthly dog social sessions have proven highly successful. Attendance has ranged between 8 to 10 dogs for the first session, with a number of accompanying owners. Many attendees have purchased refreshments and meals from the cafe, contributing to the increased revenue for that day. Feedback's been really positive, both in person and social media. So these sessions are now going to be held on the first Saturday of each month, with the aim of building a regular community of dog owners and walkers who can then connect and socialise. 6.16, the table at the end shows that the table at the end of summer that the cafe is performing similar to the year before, with a mix of good and poor weather impacting the sales throughout the month. 6.18, income fluctuated somewhat over the following 3 weeks. Home education for students and the Canine Coffee Club was introduced, which brought a higher than usual Saturday income. The final 3 weeks of September did host less football games compared to the start of the season, with there being 0 or 1 each week, which may have contributed to the weeks which underperformed. 6.19, the first week of October has done better despite there being no breakfast club due to the staff away day. With the introduction of new initiatives and the return of the winter sessions, there hopefully will be continued growth against last year's income. And you can see in the table there's some commentary about kind of what's happened, which explains some of those figures. Section 7, the community lottery. There's currently 30 good causes signed up to the community lottery and 151 players. And the total revenue for local good causes today is £3,175.20. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report.
I've won 6 free tickets.
I'd just like to say initially it's very encouraging. We've got 22 new people signing up. I think that's great. You know, it never ceases to amaze me the inventiveness of the splash park and the different things that we come up with. I think that's great as well. Hopefully that inspires new ideas to come out from it and to keep that going, because that really is an important aspect, not just for the income from the cafe, but also for residents as well. So I think it's really useful. I think there's a decision we need to make here, isn't there, regarding the
CBC.
the consideration for the additional funding. It's great to see that CBC have put forward there, or said that they intend to continue that, because obviously that will give us the full scope to be able to continue what we've had up to now. Can I just ask, is that additional amount that we're saying there, should CBC default on that process or something happens, has that been properly costed for and accounted for in the budgets up to date?
Yeah, so the detached, it's just important for members to note, detached still wouldn't look the same as it does currently, even if we get that money.
Right.
So that money would cover 3 nights a week. At the moment, we run 5 nights a week, and that's because we get money from the lottery as well.
Okay.
So the money from the lottery, there's no chance that will continue, because they fund it area by area, and Dunstable's not an area that you can apply for in this next financial year. So it's really important for members to know that this would be 3 nights, not 5 nights. So what we kind of are proposing is that members would budget and calculate that £35,000 going forwards, so that then if we didn't get that funding in the future, say in a year's time, we have got that money budgeted.
Partly because CBC tend to make that decision quite last minute. So if they pulled the funding with a month or 2 months notice to go, then we'd already have done things about making people redundant and ending the service. So somehow we need to build in that buffer to make sure we can carry on with the service if that's what members want to do.
Okay. That's right.
Thank you. So I remember at our last community services meeting, we discussed the possibility of the town council covering this 3 nights a week, or 2 or 4 or 5 nights a week. So it's great that Central Beds are probably offering the money to continue it for the coming year. Is this £35,000 reserve we're building in as a redundancy? Is that does that mean that in the event that this funding does get withdrawn in a future year, we are saying as a town council we are only covering 3 nights a week, or would at that moment that comes up, if we wanted to discuss more or less nights a week, would we be able to discuss that then?
The 35 would enable the 3 nights a week to carry on.
Yeah.
Obviously, at any point, we could then discuss actually what do we actually want. But the idea is that by putting 35 grand in, you're then able to continue for another 12 months, which would then give you time to look at other funding sources.
So we've got a fallback option.
Yeah.
Another option to extend if we need to.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
That's Chloe.
On this point of money, if we were potentially getting 30 grand of funding, why are we putting aside 35?
Yeah, it's because in the budget, we then put aside £5,000 to run activities. If we only had £30,000, it will only pay for salaries. It won't pay for any additional activities. So in the budget, there is £5,000 that's been set aside. So the 35.
So we don't need to approve 35 extra, then only 30 if there's already 5,000 in the budget.
The budget gets approved with that £5,000 extra, yeah.
Okay, so this wouldn't be a total of 40 then, if there's 5 grand already in the budget.
Makes sense what you just said, because if there's no, Becky shaking her head.
Somebody want to come in?
Apologies. I've also got a 6-year-old with me as well, so apologies. So basically, if I understood it correctly, we've got the situation where we've got Central Beds are offering us the money for the salary. We need an additional 5k regardless. We haven't got that budgeted otherwise because we've stopped detached. So we need to have that £5,000 regardless in there. So if we decided actually we don't want to try and manage ourselves to have a fallback, we still would need to budget £5,000 regardless, because as I say, we've taken out detached currently. There is nothing there for detached if we don't have this £30,000. So we need £5,000 roughly. You don't have to, but it means that our detached youth workers have no budget in which to respond to requests, projects, activities and that kind of stuff, which does limit the impact that they can have when working with young people. Does that make sense, Councillor Crawley? I'm not entirely sure, because I can't see your face with the way in which the camera's showing. I can't see any body language
Yeah.
to say whether or not that's helping at all or not.
It does make sense, yeah.
Yeah.
The-
So I mean,
the-
ideally, you could say, well, we've got verbally Central Bed saying we've got £30,000 verbally. We've not had it in writing yet. We had hoped we'd have something, but verbally they've given it to us. So actually, we only really need to be budgeting for 5,000. But there is a real risk that they then don't come through with that, because they then find themselves in tight times or something happens, and then we've got to the last minute cut all of our detached youth work. So it's trying to build in some resilience. And if you look at our older people services, we do have a budget reserve there as well for older people, because we're in exactly the same situation there. Whilst Central Beds funding doesn't fund all of our older people services, we do have an element of funding from Central Beds, and if they are to pull that from us, and again we only have year-on-year funding from us there, then we either need to hike up our council tax that year at the last minute significantly, or we've got that reserve that we can fall back on again. So it's just trying to manage some resilience where we know that we've got funding, but it's never, an absolute and 100% secure. So that's the rationale behind it.
Would we be able to ring fence the 30,000 so that it doesn't just get spent additionally? So if we agreed to the 35 and that the separate, or the 30 to be ring fenced, and then the 5 for spending, if we were to get the 30 grand, would there be guarantees that that 30 wouldn't just be broken in small chunks that didn't need to be signed off?
No, absolutely. So currently we've got that
But,
currently with the reserve for the older people, so it doesn't get touched. It's sat there for that
Okay.
emergency of, oh my goodness, our funders have just pulled out, and we've still got all these older people that are expecting lunch post April. So what do we do? So absolutely, it would be in a ring fence reserve that wasn't there just to be touched because we would like to put on an extra activity or something. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the last meeting we did agree to look at the 3 days a week, didn't we? So
Yeah, that was the preferred option from both officers and from what members were coming back with. I say we could, you could alter it, or you could say, well, great, let's put on more. But I think we need to be realistic. We're hearing what you as members are saying, and we're trying to kind of find that commonality and that best approach, really.
yeah.
And I think what's been explained here is this is a fallback situation anyway, so I think we just need to bear that in mind.
It's highly likely that.
Yeah.
I would say.
I think just the other bear in mind of that, members, which I know we talked about before, is if CBC did pull that funding, that would mean they weren't funding any youth work in Dunstable in the coming 12 months. I think that would be worth a challenge if that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, they wouldn't be meeting their statutory responsibility for facilitating any youth work. So they don't actually have to deliver, but they should be facilitating youth work. And that would be argued that they're not doing that and meeting their statutory requirements.
That's a good point.
The risk is quite low, hopefully quite low. Councillor Kazarski.
How's the bulb planting getting on with the schools? Is that been completed now, or is it still?
They are still doing some.
Still going,
They
yeah.
are still doing some. They had done quite a few already. There was a couple that they had to cancel. They had 2 in one day, and the weather was horrendous.
It's
They
been
weren't
hit
able
and
to
miss
do
with
that,
it,
and
hasn't it?
obviously now just had half term,
Mhm.
so there are a few more in for them to do.
Okay.
Can I just sorry, just one more random question on another part of the report, which there it is, 6.13. Why are we holding monthly dog socials?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We opened Splash Park for dogs at the end of the season. It was really popular.
Right.
And we have then had feedback from those dog walkers. It's really nice to have that space as a social space where it's on, they know when they're going to be meeting.
Yeah.
And actually for that community of dog walkers, it's something that they're really enjoying and wanting to come together. So we're utilising that to say, well, actually, this is a different community group that we're now reaching. They're then purchasing refreshments and meals from the cafe, and I'm really appreciative of it. So although it might sound random, actually, we're reaching a really different member of the community that otherwise we might not reach.
Is there a
So-
cost associated for us on that?
A cost associated for us, no. So
Right,
they're
it's
just coming
they're
along.
just coming along.
Yeah, the cafe's open anyway.
Okay.
But they are using that, and so we're kind of really wanting to utilise that because we're trying to reach lots of different members of the community.
Okay. That's
Kind of following on from opening the splash park, and it's been really popular. We feel like actually it's really worth utilising this, and the members of the community asked for it, and having that kind of time where they can all meet was really appreciated. And I think they put some more pictures on kind of social media and stuff as well. So I can imagine that actually that may begin to grow, which will be nice to see.
let's encourage it to be a community-led, community-funded, lovely thing.
Mhm.
It's a good thing to have for sure. But I don't want it to become another event we have to start.
Yeah. I think it's really important on that as well, with obviously the cafe.
Yeah.
We're very much looking at doing community development, community-led projects. So there are things where my team are maybe needing to help initially to get those things off the ground. I kind of want to go back to when we did men in sheds many years ago, and we look at men in sheds today. So there is some of that kind of maybe initially getting them off the ground, but that is very much kind of what the team is looking to do. So we're looking at really getting members of the community to lead on these things with a bit of support from us, and then being able to withdraw what we can. Friends of Dunstable Cemetery is another example of where my team have done that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of very much what we're looking to try and do.
Wonderful.
It's good to know that it's not all gone to the dogs.
It made me laugh in there that some of the owners came. The dogs come on their own.
Now that will be impressive.
Yeah, it said attendance range with a number of accompanying owners, but didn't say all, they were all accompanied.
Okay, so getting back to the nature of the recommendation here, we need to have a vote that we will recommend on that fallback proposal. So can I have a show of hands to, we all happy? Yeah, it's unanimous that we're happy with that fallback position to be noted. Okay, is there any other questions on the report or anything?
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry. I'm so sorry. The community lottery, we've got 30 good causes, wonderful. Revenue for local good causes is great. Wasn't there a point where the town council was going to get some money? Well, we meant to get some from.
If you look in, if you look in the budget papers, you can see that there's a line there for the community lottery income and expenditure. It's hard to question what our income's going to be, because obviously we're trying to grow it, and the more tickets that are sold, we'll get more income. We do know what our expenditure is in terms of getting the license and what have you. So you'll see in the report that was on the budget that there's a line where we think what our income will be, that no decision has been made about how that income's going to be spent yet. And I think it's hard to determine how to spend that until we've had 12 months of the lottery and we kind of get a bit of understanding of what our annual income is actually going to be. Does that answer your question?
Distribute ourselves.
Okay. Does it look like we're on kind of expectations at levels of what we were expecting it to be currently, or do we not get a regular?
No, we do. It's hard to say what we were definitely anticipating and expecting.
More than our
because the
expenditure,
figures change
presumably.
each month. So it's hard to kind of be that specific. You know, sometimes we have months where people will get more tickets and then we'll get more. So it's really hard to say whether this early on, whether or not I'd really feel more comfortable after a whole year to be able to say this is where we're at, and I think this is a realistic projection of what we're going to be getting. I think we're at the moment projected about between £2,000 and £3,000 for the year, but all we need is a year where a drop in supporters, either just general the lottery or for the central fund, which is where we're getting the bulk of our income from. Or we need is those individuals to decide actually we're going to go and support a different charity, and then it really does impact because we get a far bigger percentage. We don't just get a percentage of that ticket price like we do for everybody's. We get the bigger chunk on top. So so it is hard to say, and it really does go through peaks and troughs. We've got the best income compared to any other good cause at the moment, but it could really easily fluctuate, which is why I don't want to say we've got this income that we can rely on.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any other questions from anybody else? No? Okay, shall we move on then to the report for older people services, please?
Lovely, thank you. So again, I'll just draw your attention to a few key parts. So section 1, Good Companions Club. Good Companions Club is currently full with 25 members. However, 2 members are currently off long-term sick, and we have 24 places normally for Good Companions, but we decided to start someone from the waiting list just due to the 2 people that are off sick. We're not sure when they will or won't return. 1.3, in the lead up to the Christmas period, Good Companions will have a Christmas out at one of their sessions. They have got a meal booked out, and they've got visits from the local school and nursery plans. So some lovely things for that group in the Christmas lead up. Section 2, Lunch Bunch. So the Lunch Bunch currently has 38 members, and the Older People's Officer continues to support the group and has been working on continuing to stagger new members. But council, it's really important to note that capacity in that building, off the top of my head, is either 41 or 42. So our waiting list is not going to get cleared, because you'll see below that we've got a waiting list of 23 people at the moment. So officers have spoken in Priory View about the possibility of the caterer for Lunch Bunch visiting Priory View once a month on a Sunday to cook roast dinner for the residents, their families and members of the public. I had a meeting with Priory View a couple of weeks ago, and they are exploring that. They're going to kind of look at how that may or may not work. So that'll be kind of left with Priory View now to explore. 2.4, officers have built a really good relationship with Cafe Nostalgia. They covered the catering for an interim period before the current caterer began at Lunch Bunch. And Cafe Nostalgia have really kindly agreed to cover sickness or holidays when needed. And it's just important to note they actually did step in very much at the last minute due to our caterer being poorly. And that was really appreciated because it meant the group could continue to meet on that day when the caterer wasn't well. Section 3, the Over 55 Breakfast Club. The Over 55s Breakfast Club continues to be popular with those who attend, and there's currently 18 members signed up. Section 4, Rock and Roll. The next Rock and Roll takes place later this month on the 25th of November and is going to be Christmas themed, with entertainment provided by the Wilsons. At the time of writing this report, 37 tickets have been sold, but this event is now a sellout with 70 tickets been sold.
Yeah, good one.
Section 5, Food Club. So officers launched the first food club meetup where 14 people enjoyed a meal at Casmix, and there's 22 people who have signed up to be part of the food club. And the community services assistant has carried out a poll to decide where the group wishes to go next. So the group is going to go to the White Swan on Thursday. That was kind of where they decided and voted to go. And again, officers are planning to support this group for 6 to 9 months. But once this group is established, again, officers will withdraw from that. And we hope the group will then be a group in its own right and they can continue to then meet up. And then officers will be able to focus their attention on something else. Section 7, coffee mornings and afternoons. So officers are hoping to get a group of volunteers to take over the facilitation of the coffee mornings. So again, they can be community led. So we're going to be advertising for volunteers on social media, local community boards, the website, word of mouth, etc. The aim would be to have volunteers in place early next year, who would then need to be inducted and supported by officers for a period of time before then handing out that facilitation to volunteers, with officers always being in the background to step in and support whenever required or needed. Section 8, the household support funds. Officers will shortly be receiving £1,839 from the household support funds, and this is going to go towards buying members of both Good Companions and the Lunch Bunch supermarket vouchers for the week where both groups will be closed between Christmas and New Year. And then kindness bags 9.1. Officers have received kindness bags from the Small Acts of Kindness charity, which we also received last year. These bags will then be distributed between Good Companions and the Lunch Bunch, and the bags have got things like winter warmers and things in them. So over the next kind of few weeks, we'll be distributing them as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the report on that. It's always great to hear how the elderly people's events are proceeding and how much they're enjoying it and things like that. It's a fantastic, service that's provided there. And I think it's so important, especially going into the winter months and everything else. One of the questions I just want to ask was obviously see the lunch bunch as a waiting list of 23 people. Is there any thoughts about how that could be rotated? Because I'm just conscious that those 23, it could end up waiting an awful long time. And just out of fairness, whether there could be a process put in place how it could be rotated or something like that.
So it wouldn't work to rotate, unfortunately, due to those members some of those members have been coming for many years. And so that's kind of quite an established group for that particular cohort. So we have had conversations with kind of prior review about whether or not a second lunch club could be put on, but we wouldn't have the resource at the moment or the capacity to be able to run that. So there have been other discussions, but I think what's really important to note, members, is that we've obviously put the food club on, which is an additional. We didn't have that before. The breakfast club is an additional. We didn't have it before. Happy and Active is an additional. So those 23 members, some of them will get invited and do get invited to step into that. So I think it's really important for members to know it sounds a lot, 23, but actually the team have put 3 additional things on, which actually I think is really beneficial because it caters for more people potentially based on what their needs are. So for some people, for example, the breakfast club, they don't want a lunch club, and some of them were on that waiting list. And actually, as soon as you said, well, we've now got a breakfast club available, oh, that would suit me really well, actually. So they then come off that waiting list and they've gone into the breakfast club.
So everyone's got an opportunity to.
So we do try and provide opportunities, and whenever a new project comes up, we would contact those people. So just an example of that would be the breakfast club. If they went to a lunch club, unfortunately, they can't join the breakfast club.
Right.
Because we want to be able to allow new people to join.
Okay, so
So we've tried to do it in that way to be as fair as possible, that actually if you're already at a lunch club, because we've got such a big waiting list, you're not able to come to breakfast club as well. So we have had people we've turned away to say it needed to be one or the other.
Okay, that's really good. The other thing as well I was just going to ask is that can we pass on our thanks, not that we don't do already, but a special thanks from councillors and members to say that for Cafe Nostalgia.
Yep.
And to the other 2 for the Household Support Fund, which is the Household Support Group, and also to the Small Acts of Kindness charity, because I think it's a lovely thing what they've done there, and I think that really deserves some acknowledgement.
Yeah, I'll look at that.
Do we have other members that want to speak on these points or questions on the report? Okay. Right. Well, in that case, I think we can declare the meeting closed. Just before I do that, I just think it's obviously that this Sunday is our remembrance service, which is very important for the town. So if those councillors that can attend, it would be most appreciated, I'm sure, by all. With that, I declare that the date of the next meeting is Monday, the 12th of January at 7 p.m. and this meeting is now closed at 2012. Thank you. Thank you. I've been at most time.
Your councillors, see this.